Okay. All right. Just because it still is a public meeting, even though it's a retreat, we do need to formally call the meeting to order and do our roll call, and then we can, I don't see any public present, so, but just so we can have officially a part of the record, public comment, and then we can go over ahead and turn over to Kathleen. So with that, I see our chair has arrived. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning, all. Good morning. I see that we do have a quorum for our meeting. The meeting is called to order. Deputy City Manager Richardson, do you want to call the roll?
Sure. Let me get myself together because apparently I didn't have my pen out. All right.
Thank you all for coming this morning.
Yes. All right. So it's 9:04 a.m. And all right, Chair Jane.
Yes, here.
Here.
We have occupied detention.
Here.
Ms. Holmes.
Here.
Wen. Alderman Wen. Present. Okay, you're not being heard, just so you know. So I'll come back to you, but I can't hear you. Max.
Here. Morning.
Good morning, Carla.
Here. Good morning.
Kimberly.
I am here.
Great. And Kathy. I do not hear Kathy, so I do not see Kathy at this moment. So she's currently not present. All right. With that, everyone is present. We will figure out Alderman, when can you speak just to make sure we can hear you audibly? Okay. If you're still figuring out, just let us know when you've gotten it figured. And then if you need to call in, you can always do that as well. All right. Also present is Shanika, and we have Kathleen here. Dr. Kathleen Gang Clayton is here to facilitate for the record. All right. I've done my due diligence as the liaison. As to that, Chair, I don't see any public comment. So if we can move forward with the retreat.
Right on.
Thank you for establishing that we have met in compliance with the Open Meetings Act.
Should I grab the screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's now in your court.
All right. Okay. So let's get started. I'm still caffeinating, guys. Oops, sorry. So that's why I did that. But it's great to be here with you all this morning. It's beautiful outside. I actually ran outside to go grab something, and I kind of regret it because I know how beautiful it is now. So I'm going to try to get us to stick to the 2 hours as best we can. We've got a lot to cover, and I wanted to thank you all for your time that you spent filling out, watching the video, and sharing your thoughts on the short survey. It really helped to inform this agenda, but also to shave off some time so that we can kind of dive right into sort of the EEC and the work that you have before you in Evanston. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I know overview and introduction seems a bit redundant, but I like doing it, and I would like that again so that I can just, so we can like sort of just get to know each other again, given all that's happened this week. We're going to go for...
I'm sorry to interrupt, Kathleen. Kathy Lyons tells me via text that she's waiting to be let into the room. If someone would admit her, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kimberly, is that you? You got her?
Good. She's coming in.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then we're gonna talk about racial equity, but really specifically, why are we talking about this? Then we're gonna go through a quick visioning exercise. We're gonna spend a little more time on mission identification for the EEC. And then I came up with this planning exercise that I think might capture some of the concerns and hopes and wishes that you shared in your feedback. And it's a short 2 hours, so then we're going to go into next steps and action items, looking into the second session that we'll be having like in a couple of weeks. Okay. All right. So some of the norms and introductions, I always do this when, I'm involved in facilitating retreats, but let's just kind of level set, right? This is how I approach it. If there's something that either you're like, what is that? Stop me. If it, after I get done with the list and you're like, okay, this is missing, stop me. All right. But let's just make sure that, we're agreeing on a set of norms as we proceed for this day, right? So number one, really important, especially in this work, because it's so easy for people to get crinkly and prickly about things. Make no assumptions except good intentions. Let's all acknowledge our privilege and power. Let us value equity over equality.
Okay, I got it.
Welcome. Come curious and engage deeply. For those of you who, like hanging back and thinking first and analyzing and you're really quiet, I really encourage you to kind of challenge yourself to step up a little and to not wait that long, because your voice is really important. And, for those of you who maybe like me, like I like talking out loud and processing out loud, try to take a step back and help co-create that space so that we can hear more of our colleagues who are in the room today. Okay. Give yourself the luxury of working on one thing. And this one is in reference to this. I know we all have this, and mine was sitting right over to my right side, and it's really easy to open up an email box or to do something else. And all I'm asking is, we've got these 2 hours. Let's let it go. Let's let it go and drill into this and see how far we can get together. Speak for yourself and not for a group. Oh, I'm sorry, I dropped number 8. Yes, and so speak for yourself, not for a group. So these are the 7 that have survived many, many showings. Is there something else that you would want to, either something else or something on this list that you're like, yes, I want to double click on that, or, hey, this is missing? Looks good.
Hi.
Okay.
Just something. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Max.
Something I learned and I took to my own work from when we did the reparations work 18 months ago was the stay solutions focused, or think in a solutions focused way.
Yes. No, that's a good one. I think we had some version of that, but I have to go check at other iterations, but thanks. It's true. Let's stay solutions focused. Okay. So who am I? You all know who I am. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My day job is being professor at UIC. I really wanted to hear this just as an icebreaker, guys. It's Saturday, so let's try to, humanize ourselves as we proceed with this important work. But just real quickly, your name, your pronouns that you prefer, your daytime title, a privilege you hold and how you've benefited from that. And just because Kathleen is a foodie, what is the best casual restaurant in Evanston according to you? With understanding they'll be open post-COVID. So why don't we just, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see your wonderful, beautiful faces. And I don't know. I like popcorning. So what that means is I'll just start with one person. And then after you're done, if you could just ping a colleague of yours so that we can keep it going. Okay, so how about we start with, I lost the screen. Alejandra. Since you were right to the immediate right in here, I'll put these back up just so you guys can see this. How about that?
Awesome.
Right.
I don't see anything yet, but hopefully you could lead me if I get lost.
This is where.
There, I see it. Okay, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. As you all know, my name's Alejandra Ibanez. I use she, her, hers, ella, if you're gonna speak to me in Spanish, pronouns. During the day, actually, I am no longer at the Woods Fund. So actually I am me, myself. I'm a parent of 3 children. And what else? That's a little bit of my title. I mostly go by mom. uh, my privilege. I would say one of my privileges is that I'm a naturalized citizen. As most of you know, if you don't, I was born in Chile and I came to the States as a 5-year-old. My family was actually denied citizenship early on. We didn't get political refugee status. But eventually were able to naturalize. So one of my privileges is being a naturalized US citizen. And in the Latino community, I really have learned what a privilege that is. If we would have not gotten status, I don't know if I'd even be in this country or if I've had the college education and the access to everything you get as a US citizen. Best casual restaurant. This is a hard one. I have yet to find something that I love, 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 but my mother loves Tapas Barcelona. And for her 70-something birthday, can't tell you how old she is, she'll kill me. We actually got to eat outside of Tapas Barcelona. So whatever makes my mother happy on her birthday makes me happy.
Awesome. Thank you, Alejandra. All right. Okay. Popcorn it. Who are you going to?
I will pass it on to Max.
Thank you, Alejandra. Good morning. Buenos dias. My name is Max Weinberg. He, him, he, his, him, he, that's right. Sorry, I'm looking at the thing. I'm a school principal in Evanston at a public school. I'm a cis white guy, so everything that goes with that when I walk into a CVS, it's, hi, how are you? How can I help you? And we're gonna let you walk out with armfuls of stuff, and we're gonna be okay with that, and not assume that you paid for it and that it's yours. Also born in America, just, I think benefit from always having the assumption of that goes with being a white guy in society. Best casual restaurant in Evanston. We're still looking for one. We did dine out last night at Five and Dime, which has a really nice roof deck with heat lamps now, so I think it will be open. But on a day-to-day, I would probably eat at Dozika on Dempster and Chicago Ave if I could eat every day. They've got great, Dozika is like fusion Asian. They have great ramen, spicy ramen soup.
Wait, how do you spell that? D-O?
D-O-Z-I-K-A.
Zika, okay.
Yeah.
There. All right. Thanks, Max.
And I will throw it to Kimberly Walton.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Kimberly Walton. My pronouns are she, her. There's another one. She, her.
Hers.
Hers, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
My daytime title, I work at Healthcare Service Corporation, which is the parent company for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Montana. So there I am in a leadership role where we work on developing new products, bringing them to the market. So all sorts of things around digital tools to access your health, programs to help you remember if you have medication adherence and things to just help you better navigate your care and the access and benefits you have with your plan. A privilege I hold in how I benefit. I'm a Black woman, so I struggled with this question at first. But I guess a privilege I could say is um, my education and the employment that it has afforded me, and being able to, earn and have a lifestyle that is, I would say, quote unquote, better than what I was born into. Best casual restaurant in Evanston. I'm just gonna say Smiley Brothers. I had that barbecue last night, and I really like their patio, especially in these pandemic dining out times. So yeah, that's one of my favorites.
It's Smiley, like Smiley, Smiley Brothers.
Yeah, it's with a Y though. SMYLIE Brothers Barbecue. I really like the pulled chicken sandwich and the bacon mac and cheese.
All right, that's bacon mac and cheese. Right on. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thanks.
I'll go ahead and pick someone.
Oh, I'm gonna pick my other new joiner, Carla.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Carla, she, her, hers. My daytime title these days, my kids are home, so there's that. That's a whole job in getting them through school. I'm also a PhD student at Northwestern in the CESB School of Education and Social Policy. Privileges I hold, I'm a cisgendered female, and I'm able-bodied on most days. Best casual dining restaurant. I'm just gonna say Hecky's. Who doesn't love some ribs?
Wait, spell that.
HECKY 'PS.
Cool. Oh my God, I'm probably gonna run out to one of these places right after this thing. Okay.
They just reopened yesterday, so. It's great.
Okay. All right. And Hecky's is barbecue?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Carla, go ahead and pick someone.
Oh, Kathy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Lyons. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My time title is Director of New Futures Initiative at Center for Independent Futures. And I like to say what that means because that could be anything. That actually means that I work at Center for Independent Futures to help families create housing for people with disabilities in their own communities. In terms of privilege, Carla, I was gonna say mostly able-bodied because most of my life I've been able-bodied, so that was the one I was thinking about, but I would say that I have the privilege of generally passing through the world as a white woman, although not always. And I'm not. I'm actually a person, I consider myself a person of color because of my half Chinese and half Irish ancestry and ethnicity. My favorite restaurant is a little diner on the corner of Prairie and Central called Prairie Joe's, where I recommend the carrot burrito, which is an unusual little sandwich, but I'm really fond of our little local spot, and I'm hoping that they manage to make it through all this. So
Right on.
I'm going to pass it to Dolores. You are here on my Hollywood screen.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
Well, my name is really Dolores Ann Petway Holmes, and I say that I don't share that often, but it's important to me because I always will go back to my maiden name. When I got married, it wasn't fashionable to keep your maiden name then, so, and I love my maiden name. I don't use pronouns. My privilege is that I'm just a strong, Black, proud woman that have accomplished a lot of things in my lifetime that I'm very proud of. And my favorite restaurant is no longer in existence in Evanston, and that was the Noy Street Cafe. I loved it for years. It was a wonderful restaurant. But I would go along with Smiley Brothers now, and for carryout, you can't beat Hecky's.
Got it. All right, I'm putting a double asterisk next to those. Thank you, Dolores. All right, I think we cover. Oh, well, we have Kimberly and Shanika and myself. So who do you want to?
We
Yeah,
still
Jane.
have Jane
Oh, I have to
and
give Jane.
I'm sorry, Jane.
I'm giving
Sorry.
Jane.
Go for it, Jane.
Thank you, Dolores Ann Petway Holmes. Love your name. My name is Jane Grover. She, her. My day job is as a principal for public engagement at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, which means that I direct the public engagement for the 7 counties of Northeastern Illinois. So it's a lot of real estate. I am privileged in every way since the day I was born. So in every way, by race, education, gender, ability, everything, every single facet of my life. My favorite casual restaurants, it's a toss-up. I discovered Ovo Frito about 1.5 years ago, and my favorite meal is breakfast. And so Ovo Frito does a great breakfast. Otherwise, it's Prairie Joe's, a couple blocks from me, and you never know what you're gonna get on the menu. The carrot burrito is awesome. But Aiden's got some really great soups and stews that are really worth the visit.
Cool.
So to you, Melissa.
Did I miss a whole bunch of people? Wow, I'm gonna need a little more coffee. This is the time.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Melissa Wynn, she, her, hers. I am my part-time daytime job. My title is alderman or alderwoman, and I am the alderman who represents the 3rd Ward of Evanston. And otherwise, I'm Melissa, and my privilege, like Jane, is I am a white woman lawyer, and very able-bodied, and like Jane, it's from the moment I was born. So that is my privilege. My favorite restaurant, I think I should shout out to a 3rd Ward restaurant, but it is one of my favorites, is Blind Faith. And anything on the menu there is great, and especially their desserts. I would eat dessert first anytime. So I will throw it out to Shanika.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Shanika Hohenkirk, ICMA Management Fellow. She, her, hers are my pronouns. I would say, and so for Dr. Yang Clayton and Kimberly Richardson, you've already heard this, but for the rest of you, my privilege would be that I am from a cultured family. My family's from South America, Guyana, and growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I was exposed to a lot of diversity, and having that diversity within me, taught me to learn different cultures, different background, and being acceptance of that. And then me having well, it wasn't really a privilege, it was really a single mom trying to make it work for her 3 kids, but being able to move around as much as I did. This is my 5th state and 3rd region to live in. And so it's given me a chance to connect with different people from all walks, races, culture, backgrounds, religion, things of that facet. So I find that, of course, my education, but I find that to be a very great privilege to be able to connect with people from all different backgrounds. What am I missing? Oh, favorite restaurant. I have 2 for Evanston. Sorry, guys, but one is Claire's Corner. In the 5th Ward, it's a Jamaican restaurant that I love so much. I have maybe about 5 of my colleagues who go there faithfully now. And the other one would be Pono Ono.
Wait, what's it called? It's you're still a little soft, Shanika, but I mean I can hear you, but it's still a little like half volume versus full. But what was the second one?
The second one was Pono Ono, if I'm saying it correctly. It's a poke place off of Sherman. No, it's not Sherman. Is it Sherman?
Chicago.
Chicago. Thank you. They all look the same to me. Honestly, I'm not gonna. So those are some of my favorites.
Cool. Thank you. All right, Kim, why don't you go and then I'll round us off.
All right, I'll be quick. Kimberly Richardson. My day job is interim assistant city manager. I feel like that's my night job too, so it's my full job. And then my privilege actually is being born in a 2-family home with parents who had the ability to afford me the privilege of going to private school because of the community which I grew up in. Public school was not really the best option in their mind. And so I think that allowed me to be able to progress in my education and then into a career where there's not many people of color in this region in the role that I sit in. So I feel that that was a privilege that would only been afforded easily to me, not for the fact that my parents, put my education before their own needs. As to my favorite, she, her, hers, I always forget that pronoun thing. Sorry, she, her, hers. And I would say my favorite restaurant this week, because I have favorite restaurants every month in Evanston, but Stack and Folded has been my go-to lately. And that's maybe because it's a stone throw away from my job, but Stack and Folded for lunch and Over Frito for breakfast. So I pretty much frequent those 2 restaurants on a daily or a weekly basis in Evanston. So
Nice. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys. That was helpful. It made me hungry. So that might keep me more focused, given I clearly can't count right now. So just real quick, my name's Kathleen. You can call me Kathleen, even not on a Saturday. My name's Kathleen. You can drop the doctor part. I only use that when I have to scare students into paying attention to deadlines. So my pronouns are she, her, hers. Privilege, I mean, you guys pretty much got it. I've been toying around with this question because it's sometimes people misunderstand privilege, like it was my privilege to serve, or I get the privilege of eating vanilla ice cream every day. Like that's not the privilege I'm talking about. So thank you. Like you guys really kind of hit it on the head. I mean, my privilege is definitely, it's very similar to many of you who cited education. I think it's also for Asian Americans in the US, because I am East Asian, there are these assumptions about being a model minority and, kind of being largely harmless and very studious and sort of, being reliable because I'm not dark skinned or I kind of fit a certain model. So I got a lot of privileges in terms of the benefit of the doubt that people had about my abilities and all of that. So I don't have although I have been to Evanston enough, isn't Habibi Inn still there? Is that a Mediterranean? I like Mediterranean food like a lot. So I know like Pita Inn is all over the place, but I will go to Pita Inn as well. So I'm looking forward to hitting all these other restaurants you guys have shared with me and with us. Thank you. All right, so let's, I'm gonna try to crank through this pretty quickly. So listen, there's not that many of us. If I'm talking too fast or there's something that, you wanna slow down and have a conversation about, feel free to throw the anchor off the side and we'll slow down for a while, okay? So what is equity? Why are we talking about it in the context of the EEC? Just real quickly, you've already gone through this. We've talked about the equity versus equality. So I think we're level set on the difference, the very critical difference between the two. And then what the difference is between individual and institutional racism. And we're going to talk a little bit about, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, because we really need to talk about these two things in the context of why it matters to us as residents of Evanston in particular. So I'm going to try to get us there in about 10 minutes, see how that works. So everyone's seen this picture, right? So, but just so for sake of completeness, there's some people who haven't. So can I get a volunteer to kind of walk us through what's going on in this picture? Don't make me call on people.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
So on equality, everyone has a, let's call it a, what is that? Like a platform that they're standing on. So everyone is being treated the same. They all have one, but it's not, as you can see, everyone's still not able to see over the fence. In equity, the barrier is being addressed. So, the one person, these people can't see because they're shorter than the other person. So the barrier is being addressed, and so they're given, one is the middle height is given the one platform, the shortest is given the two, so that they all can see over. So it's less about being treated the same, but it's more about removing the barriers that make someone's ability to access or whatever, make that easier for them.
Yeah, Kimberly, that's great. I mean, that's pretty much at the crux of the picture, and really thinking about the metaphor of different heights and the boxes as being different types of resources. The thing I really like to emphasize, though, that is important for all of us who have been grappling with and thinking about racial equity for the past few years, is to really go down one more level and to grapple with the fact that not only does this picture mean that those who may need more boxes get more, but that those who definitely don't need a box don't get a box. And at the crux of this is a hard conversation we have to have with each other around what redistribution means, right? There's not infinite resources. Those who don't need the box, upon not receiving it, allows our society to actually give those who may need a couple of more boxes, those boxes. But as we know, and given the mad week we've had, there are a lot of misconceptions and disagreements on even this basic picture that we're looking at on the right. There are people who actually more likely are metaphorically aligned with the person who is the shortest, who would get inflamed thinking about that picture on the right. So let's not go into this thinking, okay, we're all on the same page and things will be cool. Like it is a fundamental rethinking about how government and distribution and the creation of community and wealth really needs to look like in the future. Of course, some of you may have seen this picture. This is what we're dealing with in reality, guys. Okay, it is. Not only do those who don't need a box don't get a box, but in our society right now, they get all the boxes, right? They just do. And those who actually need a few of those boxes are not even standing on the ground. They're coming from a deeper hole that's been dug over generations and generations of being blocked in terms of full citizenship because of nation of origin or inability to buy homes and transfer wealth. I mean, that's where we're at. So with that understanding, a lot of us, especially in this space, have encountered exercises and programs in organizations that attempt or that address individual level racism. And it's an important level. And I, by no means, think that we can do it all. So I generally don't tend to train on this level. Okay, it's something that takes a really long time, can be done fruitfully and beneficially by a lot of different opportunities that individuals have, like whether it's through their formal education, grade school, high school, college, whatever. But I think that the people get that individual level racism is this, internalized and interpersonal, right? The one that I tend to focus on and where this work gets the most bang for the buck, or where the rubber hits the road for us, is around institutional racism. Okay, and institutional racism, as according to this definition, occurs within institutions, within. And it's important to emphasize that because a lot of my work generally focuses on the internal environment of large public organizations, whether it's government or nonprofits. I work with leaders inside of those organizations that acknowledge that institutional racism and internalized racism within the organization is continuously blocking or creating a lot of drag in terms of what they say they want to accomplish as a public organization. And so it's always been a privilege to work with leaders who are ready to actually move forward and to think about organizational change that's driven by racial equity. And that's what I do. This particular piece with you guys is interesting. And, Kimberly asked me to consider, what it would be like to think about this with respect to a board or a commission like this that is really not internal to the city government, to public administration, but is clearly a core part of the system of governance that Evanston has established. So I really do hope that we get there. Like I'll show you a little more later on in terms of like how I'm thinking about how to sort of think about your position and your power, and what might be a really important sort of group of people that you guys might be uniquely situated to actually engage and address and sort of develop. So what does structural marginalization and inclusion mean in Evanston? This was part of the John Powell video I shared with you guys, and some of your thoughts. And I pulled some of them directly because they're long, but I thought they were really great and really accurate. So I just want to read a couple of them, right? Structural marginalization is the effect of systems providing preference to the majority or privileged and disadvantaging those in marginalized populations. Examples would be LGBTQ members not being allowed to marry and have legal rights of a family spouse, people with speech language disability not being able to communicate their opinion or access communication because of a lack of accessible communication tools, physical structures being built without universal design or accessibility for women, people with disabilities, etc. The second one that I thought was just, short but sweet as well is structural inclusion would look like the city having meetings in the Fifth Ward, bringing resources to the Fifth Ward, redirecting the millions of dollars earmarked for new buildings towards investment in historically underserved populations. And so we want to just emphasize for those of you who didn't watch the John Powell video, we talk a lot about structural marginalization and exclusion, and how because we don't have meetings in the Fifth Ward, or because those who have who are deaf or hard of hearing or whatever it is, like they don't get a chance to show up to meetings when they don't even know they exist because they didn't hear about them, or they're not being transmitted in an inclusive way. He goes through a ton of examples, but towards the middle of his video, he really says, yeah, but it sounds really simple, and it is. In one sense it is how to combat all of these barriers and marginalizations and exclusions is for us. And this goes to, I believe, Max, you were the one who said it. Somebody goes, this is a solution-oriented moment for him, where he's saying then we have to start thinking about structural inclusion. Structural inclusion, not just the one-off, oh, hey, here's the flyer, and you're lucky that you met me, and now you know about the meeting, but the actual structures within a municipality that should be changed so that everyone knows when you're going to have a public meeting, these are the critical communities that need that additional box, that need a little more attention, that we build it into the standard operating procedures of the city when they're going to have a public meeting, so that none of us have to worry about whether or not they're doing it. It's part of the ordinance. It's part of just the administrative code, whatever it is. So the EEC, while external to internal government operations, does have a strategic role to play. We have to be explicit about race and who benefits and loses out, because it helps us keep focused on the structures that marginalize and the solutions that can build structural inclusion. And if anyone has any questions, again, like either stop me or throw stuff in chat. So upon just sort of seeing your responses and reading through the EEC and like some of the work that you guys have done and all that stuff, I wanted to emphasize a few things as we move forward. That it's clear that you connect racial equity to the EEC not only to talk about race. Okay, that there's navel gazing, that much is not in anyone's interest. That is not what you guys want to do or continue to do, have done, right? That we're talking about race because there's a way that you guys are talking and trying to move racial equity forward, that the dozens of boards and commissions and committees in Evanston potentially can be your base. I mean, you yourselves, I believe, are a commission, and we'll look at this down the road, but that, how do you connect racial equity if structurally there are dozens of boards, commissions, and committees? Then what is the structural solution that the EEC can think of to actually start seeding in the concepts of racial equity and racial equity approaches across a structure, so that it's not just a one-off, a handing off of a flyer to one person who may be in need? So we must remind ourselves that there are already these structures that marginalize. So how can we build the case that the structures of inclusion are necessary to move Evanston forward in a meaningful and effective way? So I'm going to stop there for a second. I think whenever I'm in full screen sharing, I can barely see, but if we're going to develop out these thoughts and these ideas through the vision and mission, as well as through the exercise where you're going to get into small breakout groups. So I want to see if anyone has any cries of outrage if I just move forward, since we're about 10 minutes behind. Is that okay? Yes, I can't see your faces. I should really be able to see your faces, but all right. And if there's a cry of outrage, go ahead and unmute and let your outrage be known, but I can't hear you and I can't see you because I have to minimize the screen. So I'm going to keep on moving forward. Okay. So usually this part of a retreat can easily take 3 or 4 hours, but I thought that, okay, well, look, let's just talk about it and see how far we can get and see if there's like more wordsmithing or something or thoughts that people have, and we can assign this through possibly a homework piece, right? So I'm trying to like do no harm by blowing through this way quickly, but to add an additional element of thinking about like where you guys have been, where you want to go. Really, it's about where you guys want to go. So here's the thing. Here are common challenges that happens everywhere. This is not just you guys. So, don't feel like you've discovered the one thing that every other group that tries to work on racial equity has not discovered, which is, you were given a broad purpose, a broad mandate, but limited access and powers and capacity. Surprise, not a surprise. That happens a lot. A lot of people don't know what racial equity means on a practical level. So it gets raised and everyone acknowledges it's important, and then everyone goes and drifts off and keeps on doing what they're doing. So again, that's a common trait. Once they actually do find out that it may mean a shift in focus and resources, backlash happens. And so you guys might have gotten close to that or whatever, like things happen, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're not working on that anymore. Okay, that happens too. And really, even when there is political will within an organization and very smart people and committed people involved, I've been involved in projects where people are still like, okay, but what's the next step? What's the next thing? Not the thing in 5 years or the vision, but what do we begin sinking our teeth into? So one of the ways that I mean, you know, I've been analyzing and thinking about what can your commission do about structural marginalization? And so some of the things that I would suggest we grapple with and just use as, let's just say like a classroom tool, like it's meaning we're using this to learn. Either it's going to stick or it won't. If something else sticks, great. All right. But this is what I was thinking about. So some of the things that you guys can do is to create possibly networks with other commissioners who are open to incorporating racial equity in their specific focus areas. I think I counted 42 boards and commissions and task forces and all this stuff, but there's a lot. But even if we started with 10 key committees and boards and commissions, what would it look like to actually start building bridges with those other structural governance mechanisms that are in control of aging, or not in control, but are supposed to give input on aging or parks and rec or whatever, and to actually make sure that the people who are serving in those bodies actually have an opportunity to learn about racial equity. Potentially training and engagement with existing and future commission members to infuse a racial equity approach in ultimately every single commission. Who knows? Pilot projects that model structural inclusion and holds other commissions and government agencies accountable to practicing structural inclusion in all areas of public deliberation and decision-making. So these are the 3 bullets that kind of rose to the top as I was thinking about you guys as an EEC and, you know, what you have done in the past, and then what you can bring forward with you and really start targeting that structural change, the structural inclusion that we're trying to get at. And that, you know, Professor Powell is really exhorting us, we got to think at the level of institutions and structures. But first, we have to start refining our vision and mission a little bit, okay? Because it's very amorphous. I don't think it's actually totally written down. I shared the ordinance back with you guys, the one that established the EEC, but I don't think that has really a vision or mission statement really in it. So thing is, 2019-2020 City Council goals. It's number 4 with the picture of the boxes, right? Ensure equity in all city operations. That's a big one. I mean, it's very, very bold. Any comments about that from, I mean, again, let me ensure equity in all city operations.
Kathleen, this is Jane.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was maybe a year ago when the city council was deliberating its goals, and we had to, or maybe the year before, we had to suggest that equity should stay one of the city council goals. There was that conversation about, I don't know, it felt as if the council thought they had created a commission and then they could drop equity as one of its own goals. So this was, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a whole discussion about whether this should be a city council goals. And it makes me think too, is to your previous slide about our focus on some of the solutions being addressed to the other boards, commissions, and committees in the city as governance structures. But there are other important governance structures too. And I think part of our floundering and figuring out what our mission here is are we looking at the boards, commissions, and committees, or are we looking at the elected, the local electeds, or are we looking at city staff, or are we looking at community as a whole? So there are lots of different avenues for us to tackle equity. And part of this has been trying to figure out where, but again, in a lot of ways, our ultimate audience is the city council. And if we have to struggle to get equity as just one of the goals, that's a significant challenge.
I just wanted to add to that, Jane, because you're absolutely right. It was one particular alderman who really felt it needed to come off. And we did go, well, as a commission before the council to get them to understand why they needed to keep it as one of their goals. The other thing is that Evanston, we have a history of starting a lot of different, things. And I mean, I can go back many, many years, but just into 2010, when this became sort of the, I want to say the spearhead for all of this, because we were experiencing so many issues within the community, and race became a really top thing. And at that time, Mayor Tisdall, if you all remember, called together several community, I guess, town halls where people came to really express their feelings about race. And so I'm just saying all this built up, it didn't just come out of the blue. And one of the things as to why I think it's so broad is because not only were we looking at the city and its operations, which would include then all of the not-for-profits and that the city funds, and to look at them and to see where they were, as well as within the staff. You have to start at home, so they needed to clean up house first. So I think, yes, it was a big task that was offered, I mean, you know, for us to do. But the thinking was that if the city began to look at its structural change, and a lot of other pieces, I'm sorry I'm moving around, but it's just reminding me of how all of this came about. Because at the same time, if you remember, Cradle to Career was being developed. And one of the things that everybody was really happy about is that Cradle Career was going to deal with systems change. And so we were all excited that we're going to come in and change all these systems that we knew were some of the reasons as to why there were so many obstacles there for parts of our community in whatever way. It could be the disability community or whatever. So all of these pieces have been there, and there's been, I want to say, attempts at working at each one of them. And then it just sort of fell to the commission for, I guess, the catch-all. I don't want to make it, but that's what it feels like. And so, yes, the task felt like a mountain, you know, even in terms of that, but it had a good goal in terms of if we were able to do it, then you would be able to have a city who really was looking at all of its citizens and trying to remove every obstacle so that everybody not only was being treated fairly, which would be equity, I mean, equality, but also based upon needs, which would be equity.
Yes. Yes. No, thank you. I mean, both Jane and Dolores. So I know a lot of, I've worked with different municipalities, and I know Evanston likes to also think it's super special and unique. And I'm just going to say, in this case, no, you're not. And that's a good thing. Actually, it's good, because if you were that unique, I don't think I would have taken this project on, because I would be like, no, we can't fix that. The mandate was broad, and I do think that there are definitely ways. Again, remember the slide, the backlash, and the way that people, once they start realizing what the implications might actually be, of course, they're going to try to drop it off. Of course, they're going to give you such a broad mandate and give you very little actual authority to get into city operations. I mean, I read the ordinance and I was like, oh, what? How are you guys supposed to know? That's not how government works. Like, So that's why I really am proposing for you all to consider not eating the whole whale of all city operations, but actually saying to yourselves, look, if you guys are a commission and there's all these other commissions out there and boards, and no one really knows whether or not they're even talking about racial equity, or if they even know what racial equity is, or if anyone's even reached out to them to have a conversation about it, why not start with that part of the whale that you're closest to? Because again, these boards and commissions, as much as, to Dolores, your point, you know, there's a lot of them, and I'm sure that there's plenty of political reasons why some of them have gotten formed and some of them have not. Got it. But let's still find the ones that are actually operational that attempt to govern, right, that actually have some influence and control over really important parts of city operations, meaning they weigh in and start influencing the way they're thinking, those sitting members. And if we can't do that with the sitting members, then maybe the EEC's role, one of them can be to actually train up new cohorts of residents who understand racial equity and the role of boards and commissions and who would be willing to serve. Just as a thought. I mean, again, like this is just given this situation with the Evanston City Council goals and how broad that is, my first thought, I tend to be strategic. I'm like, look, even if you had every single alderman and the mayor rowing in the same direction around city operations, that's not going to happen in a year or even in 2 years, right? That's not possible. So, I mean, yeah.
Kathleen, Jane again. So looking at the city council goals to ensure equity in all city operations, that to me tells me that the city council should be focusing inward on the city as a government, its operations, its protocols, policies. And I think part of our frustration is we don't see, it's not apparent to us that we see a lot of this happening. And so I don't know, I'm feeling as if part of our frustration is we want to jump in on it, whereas the city council has taken on itself this ensuring equity in all city operations. And where does that leave us?
Yeah, so Jane, I mean, and to the rest of you, what I'm proposing, given the structural realities of what that's saying, is that, again, the internal environment of government is not the only place where governance happens.
Yeah.
That the boards and commissions that you're sitting on is part of the governance structure. And that if no one's paying attention to this part of Evanston, right, because the alderman may or may not be paying attention. The city government may or may not be paying attention. But if you all are situated as a commission and even looking out across, I mean, so I'm going to move us a little bit forward. This mission statement and vision, right? Like this is what Evanston says is it vision statement, creating the most livable city in America, really broad, super vague. The mission statement is also, the city of Evanston is committed to promoting the highest quality of life for all residents by providing fiscally sound, responsive municipal services and delivering those services equitably, professionally, and with the highest degree of integrity. Okay, we can't do anything about this. This is way beyond our pay grade. This is what the city of Evanston is saying. But what I'm kind of pushing you guys to consider is thinking about the mission and vision statements for you as the EEC in a more strategic and focused way, right? Don't get distracted by that, because that's all to me a distraction, right? It's like they want to say really big, broad things and then drop a group of people in there to try to fix all the big, broad things, but not give them the direction or the tools or any of that. So what I'm saying is this moment now, thinking a little bit more strategically about, okay, what is our vision and what is the mission that we can accomplish in the next 3 years? And so just so we're all on the same page, right? A vision statement really focuses on tomorrow, like the long tomorrow and what an organization ultimately wants to become, or a commission or whatever you want to call it in the city. A mission statement is about today and what we can do today to start achieving it, right? So we need a vision because it's our North Star, and sometimes you might get lost in the weeds when we're trying to deal with our programs or like with the next steps and everything. So we got to be able to look up and be like, oh yeah, that's right. You agreed that the EEC really was going in this direction. But you also still need a mission statement. You still need to figure out, okay, what are the next steps that we're going to focus on today so that we get closer to that vision. And both are vital in directing all the goals that hopefully we will map out by the end of the second session. So right now we're just still in that process of figuring this piece out. So again, the vision statement, it's about what you want to become. It's aspirational. And so questions are things like this. What are our hopes and dreams? What problem are we solving for the greater good? Who and what are we inspiring to change? All three questions are important, but I'm going to keep on kind of pushing you guys to think about who and what are we inspiring to change? So this is a so let's just, I'd like to just go around. I'm realizing that it's 10:03 and we are definitely now behind by 20 minutes, not 10. We started late, so I'm not going to hold myself accountable for the 10. I think the question I have is, I'm assuming that we have a hard stop at 11, right? Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is this. I want to get us, and feel free to use the chat box if you want to raise questions and things like that. But if it's okay, I want to get us through the vision and mission sections, and then I'll figure out a way to send this out to you guys to get more feedback and thoughts. But I actually want to get us to an exercise that might actually help ground some of these answers that you're thinking about. Okay. So let me just move forward a bit more. So the mission statement that we will ultimately get to is what you're going to do at the core of your work. Okay, so it comes from the objectives and finally what it takes to reach those objectives. So it also shapes your commission's culture. So these are, these questions that our mission should focus on what the EEC has the most reasonable control and influence over, keeping in mind the capacity and time constraints of members. We should think in a 3-year time frame. And as a committee, thinking about whom do we serve, how do we serve them, what do we do, right? Real concrete. So what the exercises that I've set up for you guys to really start thinking about this is understanding the networks of commissions, task forces, boards, and committees. Okay, so what does that mean? This is about a 40-minute exercise, so that's why I'm pushing us a little bit to get us centered and focused on a potential community of participants, right? So going back to the mission statement, it's like, who do you serve? It's like, and a lot of you might be like, I serve the people of Evanston. That's fine for a vision. I'm talking about a mission. Who is your target group? Who do you have potentially the most inroads to or the most sort of consensus to engage? And it can't be all of the people of Evanston. We got to kind of, narrow and focus it down. So I'm going to send this off to you guys so that you have a copy of this. But this comes from, actually, in fact, I don't know, Kimberly, if you're around, if you can just post the link in the chat room. Oops, but it's right here. Sorry, guys, I just messed up my. So here's what I would like you guys to do, right? So there's over 25 groups, just boards and commissions, and there's like task forces and all this stuff, but it's really important for you to click on the link and look at who is listed there, what they're working on, and where does racial equity get raised or not. Let me just fast track it for you guys. I went through probably 10 of these links and I couldn't find the word equity or race in about 10 of them. I was looking, okay? So again, if it is the EEC's role to elevate and raise the importance of racial equity, and we have an entire network of governance on right next to the inside of government. Okay, so none of these boards and committees, you guys aren't on the inside, but clearly there's a reason why city council and the mayor and whoever established you guys. But even in that first inner ring, if no one's talking about racial equity or race, that might be a target-rich environment to start it. I'm just saying. So here's the breakout group. So for the next 20 minutes, I want you guys to also go take a bit of a bio break if you need to go grab a cup of coffee. Go ahead and identify 5 to 6 BCCs as boards, commissions, and committees. I got tired of writing it all out from the list that you feel should have a strong racial equity focus in its work. Can you find a list of members from any of these places? What interview questions would you like to ask related to their understanding or practice of racial equity? Because we shouldn't assume, but we should ask. And then ask yourselves how comfortable you are in interviewing a couple of those individuals for real, like in real life, like between the end of this meeting to the next meeting. If we came up with a set of questions, how comfortable would you feel? What else would you need? Or are you ready now? And so what we're going to do is 20 minutes in a small group exercise. And then I want to keep 20 minutes at the end for large group report backs. Right. So with that said, I think that Kimberly, did we coordinate this brilliantly so that there's.
Yeah, we can get started now.
Okay, so you guys are going to go into breakouts. It's 10:08. I'm going to give us 2 minutes. So at 10, wait, hold on. And at 10:30, we'll pull you back into this main room. I am going to, here, hold on a second. Before you guys leave, I'm trying to figure out how to, I'm gonna share the slide deck, right in the chat here. And I mean, there's gonna be enough of you, like in a group that one of you should be able to pull the slide deck up, okay? If you have any problems, we'll pop in and check and make sure you have access to the slides, but this is like you guys just spending those 20 minutes answering the questions in slides 24 and 25. Okay. All right, right on. Okay, let's get going. Kimberly, are you?
The button should pop up and you should see breakout and click on that button, please.
And also, I just tried, so we just need to request access to get access, like.
Yeah, we'll give you access.
Oh, sorry, hang on.
Okay.
Updating as anyone with the link. Yes. All right, that should work, Kathy.
Perfect. No, it did. Great.
Did you see a button to join at the bottom? Did she go mute? Oh, there she goes. Okay. I'm going to pause.
Yeah, I didn't know we were leaving, but we I left in the middle of a sentence, but that's okay.
Oh, you didn't see the timer? I'm sorry, I thought the timer popped up.
It said 58 seconds, but
so I just want to make an announcement while you guys were in the group chat.
What are you showing us?
That's right.
What?
Official.
It's official.
It's official. Yeah.
Yeah. Party. All right, back to official business.
All right, okay, I'm grabbing the screen and
Oh, wow.
well, so listen, so here's the thing. We just went through this exercise and I want to hear back from each group. I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes. We might run a little later, but really the outcomes, like I just want to flash forward, right? Next steps, because we're meeting again in 2 weeks. Right? So I do think that I just want to forward you guys, like skip through. What are some of the next steps? Like anchoring our work, doing some more reading analysis. Like some of you are like, I wanted something to read. I'm like, okay, do never say that to a professor because now I give you all the things to read. Okay, so I can give you a couple of things to read if you want to read it, but around mission, vision, stuff like that. And you know, for us to possibly keep on deepening this exercise that we're doing into something that might really create maybe a concrete path forward to thinking about how structurally the EEC can model structural inclusion, how it can really target some, I'm not asking you to do all. So let's do a quick, I got a timer, so it's 10:34. I don't care, there are 2 groups. So why don't we go with group 2, since 2 always goes after 1. Can you guys just report out, you know, what were some of the surprises? Like you reviewed the boards and commissions. Which ones did you feel should have a strong racial equity focus? Were you able to find some members? What would be some questions? And, you know, and ultimately, how did you guys feel? Check in with each other about, could you just literally email and pick up a phone and talk with someone and get some of these interview questions off the ground, even in possibly in the next 2 weeks? So I'm going to stop there. So I don't know who group 2 was.
We don't know either.
Kimberly?
Group
who
two was Alejandra was group 2.
Oh,
Okay, anyone who was with Alejandra.
I didn't know we had a number.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
did.
okay.
I
Here
had
we
it.
are.
Sorry, I never shared it. Sorry.
Okay, so maybe we'll put Alejandra on the spot. Do you want to
Oh God.
get us
Sure.
kicked off?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, and I'll start with some of the, we leaned into the topics that we felt that are, that the residents of Evanston struggle with, or where systemic racism really shows up. And so we talked a lot about issues relevant to housing, but we also had a lot of questions, though, about what are the roles or powers of these commissions. I'll say that. But we did lift up issues of housing with the design and project review, zoning, planning. Those came up because, and I'm speaking now for myself, because housing and affordability are a big issue. So that's how we got to picking at, or wanting to understand a little bit more. And we asked a lot of Melissa to talk to us about design and project review, zoning, planning, and economic development, right? We were really curious about the library board, and maybe they could be used as a resource, because they know that they've come together because of the lack of racial equity, or the sense from the community that there wasn't one there, with the firing of staff member, et cetera, et cetera. So we thought, we need to lean into the backlash. We need to lean into the tension. And this seems to be a board that has had to deal with it. So we are curious about the library board. And we definitely lifted up the Citizen Police Review Commission, that the issue of policing obviously is a huge issue. And we didn't have the chance to look at each of these commissions to know which ones speak to having a racial equity framework, but we definitely lifted up policing and that commission as a potential place to go. What else? We kind of ran out of time when we got to the mental health board. So I felt that that's also an appropriate place to go. And one of the issues that Kimberly brought up that I think was really amazing is, how can we be strategic? It's like, who makes recommendations or makes decisions and has access to money, funding? And again, it's like money and decision making should be criteria so we can be strategic with which commissions to work with. And then Melissa just talked about, which was really important, like how we standardize racial equity, like using a racial equity assessment tool, but making sure that this is standard across all commissions, and the role that we can play in helping to do that.
Nice. Anyone else from the group? You guys have a couple more minutes? Just want to make sure we captured everything. That's great. So excellent. Okay, I'll bank that time. So let's go to, who was in group 1, Kimberly?
That would be Jane.
Okay, Jane plus.
I think Dolores. Good notes.
Oh, Dolores, I was just saying I was putting each of the chairs in one committee. It'll be Jane, Ms. Holmes, Kathy, and Mac.
And Carla.
Carla, sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, do you guys want to, Jane, or Dolores, do you want to kick us off, or whoever? And, if you want to just double click on some of the groups, and then, talk a bit about, like questions, or like what you'd be curious about finding out about them.
Jane, you want to take the lead?
Sure. As kind of like the other group, as Alejandra said, we looked at where the power and the money is. So which of the boards and commissions and committees, we call them the BCCs, have control over some pot of money, and that would be the mental health board was one of them, and the CDCG committee. And then we thought about two, who's making decisions or at least has the ability to influence city council decisions. And the Plan Commission was one of those. So, and then we also agreed that the Citizen Police Review Board was an important one to look at. Economic Development Committee, the Arts Council, and then the Design and Project Review, agree again that there's an opportunity there. And I mentioned too, Parks and Recreation Board. They seem to have the ability to direct or influence the allocation of, or the amenities, programs, facilities. And so we had some questions that I put in the chat box. We wondered if there were a standing affordable housing committee. We weren't quite sure if that was Housing and Homelessness Commission or ad hoc committee that might be amenable, that might be a good audience for this. We talked about whether or not the applications for appointment to the BCCs include a question about background or training and diversity, equity, and inclusion as a criteria. And then it'd be important to know who the chairs of those commissions and staff liaisons would be, because I thought it might be interesting if we, as a commission, developed a standard presentation that we could ask to get on the agenda of each one of these BCCs and do a presentation about here's how a board, commission, or committee can approach equity in its operations and decisions. And that might be an opportunity to get on the agenda and get their attention that way, in addition to the person-to-person connection. So we all seem to know someone on the boards, commissions, and committees. I'm looking at the interview questions. And we would want to, as Carla said, lead with, so what are you doing to support equity in your work?
Okay. Wait, so let me make sure I'm taking notes. So you guys identify. Oh,
Jane, did you, I'm sorry, I missed it if you did. Did you put which staff person staffs each one of the committees?
Yeah, I included the question
Okay.
about the list of the committee chairs and staff liaison, the staff.
Right, okay, great.
For each one of them, because that's how you get on the agenda.
Right.
The chair and the staff person for each.
Right.
Okay, so I caught you guys were raising like you would. These are open questions that you would raise, which are what do the applications actually look like? Are there any questions on there about racial, like just racial equity training or diversity training, just any awareness of this issue?
Just in the city's form application, are we? Here it is. Kimberly has posted it. Thank you, Kimberly.
Well, so there's going to be potentially a lot of interesting follow-ups and follow-throughs on something like this. So I would say, I mean, I guess the question I generally have is this something? So I don't think you necessarily can get all of this, like review the application and do this and do that in 2 weeks. What if you guys committed to identifying one person on the board and commission? Maybe we create a shared Google Doc so we don't hit the same person up like 3 times, to actually have a conversation about racial equity in the city and how boards and commissions starting to really exemplify or pick that banner up on the first ring outside of internal city operations might actually be, a really important component to moving racial equity forward even within the city. Actually, in fact, like, I think that Melissa, do we still have our alder person around? Where?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry, you're still in a small, tiny box, but
yes.
What has been your experience working with other boards and commissions and committees?
With respect to equity?
Yes.
Well, it depends on the board and commission. And, you know, I think it's become an issue that we're much more aware of in recent years. I sit on or have sat on probably 4 or 5 of those committees, economic development. I don't have the list right up in front of me, but I have sat on or do sit on a number of those. And certainly on economic development, it's a regular topic with us. What our group was discussing was coming up with some kind of racial equity tool so that you can have uniformity across all of the boards and commissions, so that to the extent that we can have the everyone, when they're talking about racial equity, generally be talking about the same thing. I think that's important. I'm also on the Housing Community Development Block Grant Committee. And of course, racial equity is a critical issue in terms of determining how we spend money, but that would still be very useful to have a racial equity tool there. I think, you know, for instance, the Plan Commission, you know, it's not necessarily a group that you would think is thinking about racial equity, but I still think it would be useful for them to be trained because they, you know, start thinking about development in Evanston, making sure that you understand what racial equity is. So I think on the committees that certainly allocate money, this has been a topic that we are regularly addressing and talking about, but it still isn't uniform. So I think we have to come up with some kind of tool so that you, as Kimberly in our group was saying, you know, it removes some of the subjectivity so that we, especially when you're allocating money, that we need to make sure that we're all following the same set of guidelines.
Sure, sure. Oh no, I appreciate. Thanks for sort of expanding our collective understanding of where different BCCs are at. You know, really, I mean, the next steps. I mean, I know that this is a short 2 hours, and given the news that just came out, and it's a beautiful day, I want to get us out of here by 11. All right. But I think some of the outcomes that we have been able to get close to and or achieve is actually, I think we got there. So to level set on what racial equity means for the work of the EEC in the city of Evanston, we're closer. We definitely have to skip through that real quick. So I'm trying to figure out a way for us to take this experience of thinking about the boards and commissions and to sort of maybe do a bit of a homework piece for you guys to think about what would a 3-year plan look like, and to derive a mission from that. And then potentially with the planning exercises, you know, what could we get out from listening to other BCC members on what they think racial equity means? I mean, you guys are kind of like skipped ahead and you're like, yeah, I mean, probably making sure we level set with all existing board members that they understand what racial equity does and does not mean, but then also potential board members, right? Like how do we recruit for these different boards and commissions? Where does racial equity factor into any kind of orientation? Or I assume that board members have an orientation, right? So, or some training. Where does that show up? So, you know, here's this thing that I showed you guys all. Like, so how do we start thinking about this stuff? Is there something that we're missing? And what I propose is this: you guys popcorn out all of the things you've been like that came out of the exercise or earlier. I can't promise that I'll be able to incorporate all of them into the next 2 hours, but if we were to do a little bit of homework, like similar to the video, but is anyone, I mean, I don't know how to frame this. I'd really like to encourage you guys to reach out to one other person on another commission. Given that you sit on the EEC, it's not going to seem strange. Like you can just be like, look, you know, I'm on the EEC and we're kind of doing this. That's what I think will inform even our understanding of where people are at or where they're not at or whatever. So That's something that I would like us to at least put one call in. How unreasonable or reasonable do you think that would be?
I already started pulling down the list from the website of the different members. And so, Kathy, if you could send me your final list, because I have what our team did, but I didn't take notes on what the other team did. I'll be happy to put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and that way people, or like a shared Google sheet. And that way people can sort of write their names, like I'm going to talk to person X. And we might know multiple people, but that way at least we try to talk to someone from all, as opposed to like 4 people talking to 4 different people from one. So I'm happy to throw that in a Google sheet and share it.
That'd be awesome. And maybe if anybody on staff, or no, we really relied on Melissa. We were like, so what does this committee do? What does that committee do? And then maybe next to the actual committee, somebody could put in like what their purpose or power is, at least just to give us more context. And if we do that in a Google document, that would just make it easy. And again, I don't know, does this break any of the rules about doing collective work? I don't know. So I rely on those of you who've worked for the city to tell us that too. Because this sounds really practical and really doable.
And could we maybe come up with, before we leave, maybe 3 basic questions that we would want to ask the person that we're going to talk to, and so that we would all be asking the same thing?
Yeah.
And that way it would be a better comparison.
I
Thank
agree.
you, Dolores. Yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay,
Maybe,
so look,
can I
sorry.
just suggest, rather than looking at all of them, there was significant overlap. Maybe this was already said, but can we also just agree on the like 8 or whatever committees that we're looking at, or board BBCs? Or are we trying to look at all of them and find a person in all of them? Or are we just looking at
No.
So I've got housing, design, zoning, planning, library board, mental health, CDBG, planning showed up twice, arts council, parks and rec, library board.
So
I
just
said
so
that
you
already.
know, DAPPER is a staff ran committee.
Yeah.
So just so you know, it would be a staff member you'll be speaking
What's
with.
Dapper?
That's
That's
design.
the design and project review one that we talked about.
We talked.
That's 11.
Did police board make it on there, or police review board?
Yeah,
It was on our list.
I can.
Can you say the list again quickly, Kathleen?
Sure. I mean, I think I skipped it. I mean, I thought I had. So housing, design and projects, zoning, planning, library board. But library board really as a potential ally to this work.
Yeah.
Mental health, CDBG, arts council, parks and rec. I missed police, sorry.
Police review, yeah.
Police review.
I think that's a good list.
And economic development made it too?
Yeah.
And affordable housing we have to make sure if it's there.
Okay.
Affordable housing was a task force. I believe their work has been, I don't believe their work is completed, but I'll check with Sarah to see if they're still meeting.
But is there some kind of commission or something, board on something that deals with
Housing and homelessness is,
Okay,
is that the one you're referring to?
Well, maybe.
Okay. Well, so I think that Dolores's point, like, especially if we have like, maybe we're at 10:54, if we go over a couple of minutes, can we just brainstorm those 3-4 questions? And then, I can work back and forth with Kimberly to just finalize some of the language around it. But what are some of the things that we want to collectively ask each person that we would talk to off of each of these?
The first question I think would be, has there been any discussion around equity in your commission or on your group?
How do you?
Right. Well, I think first asking if they've done anything. And also, do you think that your board or commission has a good understanding of equity? I think we got to back up even further and say, we're so far into it that we have to realize that a lot of people are still on the edge.
How does equity show up in your agenda?
Right. But also, what is your understanding? What do you think your board and commission's understanding of equity is, and how does it show up in your agenda or your analysis?
Okay.
You know, I mean, I'm just wondering, I mean, a couple of things is, I think you're right on, you shouldn't assume that, you know, people will even know what you're talking about when you raise the term racial equity.
Mhm.
I think that I hear a lot of you kind of interchangeably using equity versus racial equity. And there's a big question mark out there. Some people insist that it's social equity. Some people say that, well, when you say racial equity, then what about those with disabilities or women or whatever? And there is kind of an internal discussion that maybe we should still have, because there's some who say, yeah, we can drop the race part from that, and others who are like, no, in any
Yeah.
single analysis you do around housing, education, crime, race is literally the defining factor, and that all of the other exclusions and marginalizations that have been perpetrated on Indigenous people or women or those with disabilities or LGBT is based upon anti-Blackness.
Right. Well,
So,
and Kathleen, we spent, I want to say, 3 or 4 months on that very question in terms of why we finally ended up with saying that our priority was racial equity.
okay.
So I mean, the new members may not know that, but we did spend a lot of time discussing that and had to get comfortable with it because there was a lot of questions raised,
Yes.
you know, in
Yes.
terms of why we wanted to do that.
I think we actually resolved to lead with race.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think it may have been an explicit decision of the commission at some point.
Yes,
Mhm.
it was.
To leave.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So then, you know, maybe part of it is also, you know, we don't have to do this real fast, right? Like in the next 2 weeks, if we came up with a good set of questions, almost prepared ourselves for a little bit of role play, like you don't know what answers you're going to get, right, guys? I mean, there's a certain point where the last thing you want to do is start a conversation and realize, this person is getting triggered, or they are just, and then creating more work for ourselves down the road. Do you know what I mean? Like, instead, like, why don't we come up with those questions and even think about some of the kind of responses we might hear and how we would respond to them as the EEC, right? Because some of them might be like, why are you asking me this question? So is this your job, right? So like, it kind of going back to this question of what is the mission and the role that the EEC wants to lean into and play. And once we get that all hammered down, then, you know, really starting to reach out and to do that first piece of work to really figure out where are your other commission members on this issue. Okay, so I'm just putting it out there. Like, if you guys want to make a few phone calls, I'm all for that as well. But I think that we should be prepared that most of us who swim in this work have experienced it and we're comfortable with it, but sometimes you just, you know, you might encounter that one person where you're just like, oh, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
A couple of things. One is, Kimberly, is it possible to get contact information for members of our boards, commissions, and committees?
What I can do is, because I'm actually putting together the purpose in the spreadsheet right now as you guys are speaking, I can put the staff liaison and the chair of the committees on here, so that way that could be a start for you all. And then if you know individuals outside of that, then you can reach out, of course. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, my second comment is to reiterate what Alejandra suggested, is that this could be considered a communication having to do with the work of our commission. And so we cannot collaborate in a document, I don't think, without violating the Open Meetings Act, especially related to the business of the commission. So maybe there's a way.
I would not agree with that, actually, because the document is not a communication form. You're just inputting information into it. It would be a violation if you was using the chat and you were going back and forth and communicating in that way. But if you're just inputting your information, it's just a document that we're working off of.
Okay.
Unless there's some type of, back and forth in regards to a chat feature, then that would be considered a violation. But if you're just inputting information, it's one-way communication, that is fine. And someone can respond to one-way communication individually, then that would not be a violation.
So we would have to be sure we weren't responding to each other.
No, you just wouldn't respond as a collective. So you can respond, and that's fine in the document. You just couldn't just, in the document itself, it's not going to be an issue because the way the document is structured, you would not be responding in a way that would be a violation. I had to deal with this with another commission. So, so you'll be okay if you're responding in an email format or in a chat functionality of a chat function, then that would be where the violation could occur.
And, I can create a Google form that, for the interviews that you have in the future, right?
Can
So
I
that
just-
yeah.
No, Kathleen, I just wanted to kind of reinforce what you were saying about what questions we ask and how we ask them, particularly in this week when we've done, polling around the nation, to say that I think it behooves us to be really thoughtful about consistency of what we're asking and how we're asking it.
Right.
Because, crappy data, crappy questions, crappy data in, crappy data out. And so I might want to suggest just taking a step back to really have a consistent question that doesn't kind of lead anyone anywhere, but that's very open-ended to start to see, what people are thinking, because we don't want to close responses off before we even, get started.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I don't want people to feel like we're challenging them in some way, that they haven't, that somehow or other they aren't fulfilling their mission. And so I agree, Kathy, in terms of this should be an inquiry that's that I think we're trying to open up the dialogue and offer some support or help in creating this discussion about equity, and not challenging them saying, so what have you done? I don't want, because we'll definitely get the work we're supposed to do, rather than oh, yes, help us, tell us how to talk about that.
Yeah,
Melissa,
I
how
think
about
the
this?
intro could be like, as we are reviewing our own role and purpose, we are reaching out to different commissions to help understand what and how you all are working to build your racial equity analysis or something. But start from this. This is why we're reaching out to you, because we are ourselves reviewing our work and purpose.
So here's what I'm hearing, though. In the next 2 weeks, if we get this Google document up and running, I'll work out with Kim like the whole open meetings question about like working on a Google Doc. But Alejandra, and Kathy and Melissa, I hear you. Let's take the next 2 weeks to really think about the script and what we're trying to get across, and how, and also to maybe use part of the time in the next 2-hour retreat to do a little bit of role play. Right, break you guys out in groups, and I'll think of some.
It's honking on the streets. It's amazing. Sorry.
Are people celebrating?
It's over.
They're honking on the street.
Hi, how are you?
That's hilarious. But so let's do that, and then I'll rebuild in a little bit of work around the mission statement and a strategic plan. Because again, even if we start, this should be part of your work, right? We shouldn't jam this all into like November and December. It should be part of, what does this look like as a launching pad for what? What would be the next step after you get all this information in? There's still work to be done. So let's start from there next time. And I'll send maybe just one more video. Like, it's another John Powell. It's a really great one about othering and belonging that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good one for us to kind of center like how we're going to have to work with people who might not be on the same page with us, right?
Kathleen, can I ask that maybe as part of the homework, there's some sort of gauging of each person's prioritizations around these topics, to the point of us not being able to sort of eat the whole watermelon. I think it's good for us to start thinking of where our priorities might lie. So if everybody gets to like put in their top 3, with the understanding that we don't ultimately get to make that decision. At some point, we should still be taking this out to some sort of community input, but we're still looking at like, you know, at least 9 areas here.
Oh,
And
right.
we're still trying to boil the ocean. So like, even though we're looking at trying to build allies, or educated allies, educated from an equity standpoint, not a general education, educated allies in other committees, I think still we need to have some sort of prioritization based on what areas we think we want to address equity within first. So, like, if we can get it back part of the homework, I think that's just helpful for starting to narrow down.
That's fair.
And can I follow up on that? And then I agree with you, Carla. And I think actually it would be useful to see how with the first group that we address, figure out what the lessons learned are from that. You know, where have we been, do we feel as though we're connecting, and how should we change our approach if we need to be, so that to make sure that we're continuously improving and trying to make sure our message is coming across correctly.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a really great, I mean, that's a sort of a theme we're actually going to be picking up on with the internal work. It's iterative, right? So we shouldn't just try to talk to everybody all at once. It's like, let's pick a group of people, test out the script and the questions, see what kind of feedback we're getting, and then adjust. I absolutely agree with you, right? Like that's part of this is an exercise in engagement as well, and really listening. So I got it. Okay. Anything else?
No. So Carla, do you want me to work on the doc while with the purpose, and then I can send it to you so you can do the rest of the work?
Yep. And then once you do that, I'll send it back up to you, and you can send it out to everybody to start inputting where they might have contacts.
All right, great.
Oh,
thank you.
Now, I know usually in traditional in-person retreats, like there's usually a checkout exercise and whatever, but given that Joe Biden just has been declared the president-elect, I feel like we really don't need to go there. But I really do hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in a couple of weeks. And keep an eyeball out. Like I'll try to get something out by early next week, but you know, around some of the homework pieces, Kim and Shanika, if you guys could stay for like another 5 minutes, just so we can just make sure action items get mapped out, that'd be great. But aside from that, yes,
Thank you all.
Everyone.
I'm adjourning the meeting at 11:08.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
We're adjourned. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend.
bye guys.
Thank you.
Bye.